What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Godspeed ZRZ. Now today I've got a special video planned for you guys. As you know, I've said it many times before, I get a lot of questions from you guys, especially after you've just purchased your all-new Jeep Wrangler or your pre-owned Jeep Wrangler from 1985. Today I don't want to go over the correct way to approach being a new Jeep Wrangler owner. I actually want to go over the most common mistakes, that way hopefully I can help you guys avoid them. Now, many of these mistakes I've made on my own in the past, or I've had close friends or customers make these mistakes, and they're pretty apparent, but you really don't think about it whenever you're fresh into Jeep ownership. So today, I'm gonna hopefully save you guys some time, some hassle, and some money. So to start, I want to go over my number one. This really applies to anybody that just now got their Jeep and they're extremely eager, they're extremely excited, and they want to go ahead and get it the way they want. I've been in this phase many times, but my number one thing is don't rush. Don't rush into getting the cheapest parts you can possibly get, because inevitably, whenever you make a big purchase like this, you're definitely going to have at least some type of budget. For me, I typically, on the TJs I did in the past, or JKs, my budget was typically like $3 at start. So $3 is essentially enough to get you some Pro Comp wheels, the steel wheels, get you a set of Ironmans, and like a puck spacer lift. And I can promise you'll see a lot of those builds going up and down the street all the time because they've rushed into it. My best advice would be to drive the vehicle stock, at least for a little while, learn the vehicle a little bit, get to know it a little bit better, and really get a better understanding of what you think you need and the performance you're really trying to get out of it. With that being said, you're obviously going to have a little bit more time to sift through different parts. Even if you're still going to stick to that strict budget, you're going to be able to have the time to find the parts that are the best bang for your buck in that budget, as well as finding the parts that give you the styling that you want, to give you the aggressive appearance. That way you don't have to sacrifice the appearance of your build just because of the price. There are many different ways to go whenever you're looking at different parts for these vehicles, or even if you're trying to find somebody to install the parts. So tip number one, don't rush into it. Take your time, find the parts you want, and really have a better understanding of what you're doing to the vehicle. That way you don't end up just replacing the parts down the road anyway, because it just didn't work out. So tip number two, just sticking with the trend of the initial part gathering and finding the best prices, is don't be afraid of Amazon and eBay parts. Now, a lot of people will say, hey, don't get any of the Amazon, don't get any of the eBay parts. But for me, I found some of the best deals that I've got on any of my builds on those sites. And the biggest thing with that is you really just have to be aware of what you're buying. You have to really read the description, read the reviews, and a lot of times you can even find, a lot of the parts that you'd find at Extreme Terrain, Quad Trek, a lot of the bigger sites on there, the exact same parts for just a lot better price, or maybe even just get free shipping with it. So don't be afraid to scour the internet and really find the best price. You may have to dive in deep to find what you need, but if you research it correctly, you are sure that it is the right part. Don't rely on basic descriptions and pictures on sites like that, but if you do a little bit of research, don't be afraid. You really can find some great deals on there, and even some extra parts or pieces that you didn't even know existed. So for tip number three, we have to go over wheels and tires. So that's obviously one of the first really big purchases you're going to make after you purchase the Wrangler itself. Now, a lot of people really just don't understand or have a good reference for sizes or fitment. As for my vehicles, I have had a lot of experience with them, so I typically know what should fit, what could fit, and what I think is going to look the best. Now, a lot of lift kits that you get are going to have a recommended tire size. A lot of websites even have a recommended tire size as well for whatever vehicle you have. But I really think you should do your own research and find out what kind of look you're going for. A lot of people really just look at the sizes in terms of the height, and you can get a 37, a 38 like this, a 40 or 35 in a whole different range of options. Same thing goes for your wheels. This is obviously a 20-inch wheel on a 38-inch tire, but this doesn't look like your typical 20-inch wheel and 38-inch tire because it's a 38 by 1550 and a 20 by 12 with -44 offset. If you don't know what I'm saying by that, you definitely need to do some research. That way you can determine what is going to be the best fitment to not only achieve the performance you want, but also the look, which is one of the most important things. And as you're driving down the road, you'll see a lot of people have went with the 37-1250 Ironman with a 20x9 -12 offset, and it just looks like a pizza cutter on the wrong vehicle. So you really have to be aware and actually do some research and find out what you're really trying to go for. I've had so many customers, so many friends in the past to just get the first set of 37s they could get that happen to be 1250s, and most of them don't measure out correctly. So you could get a 37-1250 if you don't read in depth on the actual description of the tire itself. You could be getting a 37 by 11.9 inch wide tire. And once you put that on a 20x9 or a 17x9 wheel with anywhere from -9 to -12 offset, you're gonna get a pizza cutter, and it just doesn't look good. So you're gonna be back to square one. You're gonna have to find another set of wheels and tires and try to sell those. So a good point of reference, if you guys don't understand fitment, wheels and tires, and the actual sizes or aspect ratios, you really should go to Custom Wheel Offsets. They have a gallery of builds that people have done. I haven't posted mine on there yet, but I probably should, just to give other people a point of reference for what's possible on these Rubicon 392s. But it has a whole list and gallery of people with the specific lift kit, wheels, tires, and any slight modifications, trimming that they may have had to do just to get the clearance they needed to run those wheels and tires. So it's a really good point of reference for anybody that's not as familiar with this stuff as you should be. But one of the biggest things, guys, is just getting that wheel and tire fitment to look great with the lift kit or no lift kit. It really just depends on what you're going for, but there's so many different options out there. You really have to be aware of what you're getting. Now for tip number 3, it's a bit of a touchy subject in the Jeep world for some odd reason. It's the exhaust. And a lot of people just overlook exhaust systems on Wranglers. Whether you have the 2.0 liter, the 4.0 in the old TJ, or the 2.4 liter, the 2.5 liter in the old TJs, or even the 3.6 or 392, don't overlook an exhaust system. For me, it's been one of the most fun and most exciting parts that I've added to any of my Wranglers in the past, and I've done it to literally every single one, from a 2.0 liter JL to a 2.4 liter TJ to a 3.6 liter Rubicon, all the way up to the 392 Rubicon. And with every single one, as long as you get the right exhaust system, or even if you don't, even if you just cut off the muffler, for me it's always a little bit more fun. It adds quite a bit of enjoyment whenever you are off-road. Whenever you have a Wrangler in general with an exhaust system, you get a couple extra looks simply because it's not that common. For some reason, people just think Jeeps shouldn't be loud. I don't think that could be farther from the truth. I just really do enjoy an exhaust system on any Wrangler. It gives you a little bit more of an understanding of what the vehicle's going through, whether you're driving it on the road or off-road, and it just makes it a whole lot more fun. So don't be afraid of doing a little bit of research, finding out what exhaust system would work for you, or if you just have somebody down the street that is willing to do a little bit of experimentation and figure out what exhaust system they can come up with that would sound good on it, I highly recommend throwing an exhaust on any of the Wranglers. It even helps cut down on the road noise itself, because we all know the Wranglers are noisy on of their own, but whenever you add on the big wheels and tires, especially these aggressive mud tires, the road noise gets crazy. So the exhaust helps mitigate that, and regardless, you turn your sound system up loud enough to cancel out any of it anyway, so it just makes it a little bit more fun. Now for one that everyone talks about but nobody really understands, it's just going to be the lift kits. So don't immediately think you have to run out and get the biggest lift kit you can possibly afford on your restricted budget. For me personally, I really enjoy throwing on the biggest wheels and tires I can without a lift kit, just to see what I can get away with. But whenever I go for my lift kits, I typically don't go to the upper edge of what's financially achievable for myself. I like to stick kind of middle of the road, or go a little bit extra whenever I can. But Skyjacker's usually my turn to, and a lot of people really just go with rough country, or they go with a normal puck spacer lift, which is all fine, but you really have to understand what kind of environment you're trying to prepare the Jeep for, what kind of obstacles you're going to be going over. Really and truly, if you're going to be going through just sand at high speeds, you need a different suspension setup than what another person would need if they're just going to be doing some moderate off-roading and going over rocks, especially in the areas I'm in here. All these different environments that you'd be going through, all the different terrain, call for different suspension setups. And of course, any suspension is going to get through it, but different suspensions will do some things better than others, especially on-road characteristics. So if you're primarily going to stick on-road, maybe you need to look for a different suspension than the person that's going to be the hardcore weekend off-roader or the full-time off-roader. So there are quite a few different suspensions out there for all of these in similar price categories as well. So just do your research on them. Don't just get the cheapest you can get to throw on there to clear the biggest tire, because I promise you'll just end up changing it again later down the road. Dive in, do a little bit more research, and make sure you get the right kit for the correct environment that you're going to be taking this Jeep through. I've made number 5 a 3-part simply because I couldn't fit everything into just 5. It's really hard to fit it into 8, but this is my best attempt at that. So for number 5, part 1, is to simply have the right expectations whenever you go into Jeep ownership itself. There's plenty of acronyms for Jeep: just empty every pocket, or just expect every problem, and that's the one I like to stick by. If you're expecting problems, especially once you start beating the thing off-road, or you start throwing on some kind of sketchy aftermarket parts, you really have to expect something to go wrong. More times than not, it's very, very minor issues, but there are things that do come up. Whenever you expect the worst and just a small issue happens, you don't think it's the end of the world. And really and truly, once we do a certain amount of things to these vehicles or put them through a certain amount of stress, it's really on us. So don't take your anger out on the Jeep. There's plenty of different Jeep forums. There's plenty of different people, and I'm sure in just every area, that are willing to help you out and figure out what things are causing the issues. So don't get mad at your Jeep just because of a couple little mess ups. There's always a way to fix it, and there's usually people around that are willing to help you figure out what's causing the problem as well. The Jeep community is one of the best, automotive communities that you can get once you do make a new purchase, and you're automatically enrolled. You don't have to pay a subscription. You don't have to do anything. Once you own a Jeep, other people are willing to help you out, and that is one of the best benefits of Jeep ownership itself compared to any other brand. Now, part 2 of number 5 is, especially with the JLs and the JKs, once you get a hard top, you expect, hey, it's not going to get wet on the inside. Believe it or not, these do have new irrigation systems set up on the hard tops, but you still get a couple little dribbles. So just go ahead and expect that whenever you go around tight curves or you're at different inclines, declines. It does flex the top, and in certain situations it can open up just a small enough gap to get a couple dribbles on your shoulder, or the irrigation channels themselves, if they get overfilled, if they have leaves, if they have any kind of debris in there, it can overflow and dribble on your shoulder, get down on your neck. But don't waste your time and money on trying to get these extra weather stripping for these, because really and truly it just doesn't help that much. You just kind of waste your time, go through a little bit more aggravation and heartbreak because you can't fix it. But that's one of the issues. I would say just leave alone and learn to live with it. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, but it's not that bad. Now, the last one I want to leave you with is a little controversial as well, and for me, that is the rear spare tire delete. So one of the biggest costs you'll run into that just kind of seems ridiculous is having a full-size spare wheel and tire that matches. So for me, I've actually not ran it on the last 3 or 4 Wranglers I've done, and I have no issues. Now, typically I will have a full-size spare that I can throw in the back or throw on top if I go riding, but more times than not, I really don't purchase one at the start, just because it's a whole extra, $1,000, $1,500, something like that, just to get another wheel and tire. And that extra $1,500 can go a long way on getting the looks the way you want, or getting the performance where you want it to be at. And the extra wheel and tire just really isn't necessary to start. It is great to have one, especially if you're going to go riding or for some crazy occasions, but I always have like a full set of wheels and tires that are just different sizes sitting in the garage, so it's usually not too much of an issue for me. At the start, I would recommend probably getting, it doesn't have to be full matching, so as long as it's the same height, you should be good to go, and as long as it's the same bolt pattern on the wheel, you should be good to go. Because on these solid axles, you don't want to run 2 different sizes if you do have a flat, just simply because where it's a solid axle, it needs to rotate at the same speed. So if this 38-15-50 went out and I had a 38-13-50 on a 17x9, it would still fit and it would be perfectly fine to get me back home. Well, that's going to do it for today's video, guys. I hope this short little video helps at least a few of you on your journey as a new Jeep owner, and I hope it allows you to skip a lot of the mistakes that I've personally made in the past, a lot of my friends and a lot of my customers have made in the past as well, because really and truly it just wastes time, it just wastes money, and you'll be redoing a lot of the stuff we already talked about if you don't do it correctly the first time. But as always, guys, if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you want to see next. But until next time, just take it easy.